Bom dia a todo mundo. Hoje a gente vai ter uma palestra da professora Chengxin CHEN sobre abordagens de base e as relações sociedade e governo na crise do Covid. A professora Chen está aqui conosco e ela mandou o vídeo e nós vamos debater depois do vídeo, que é uns 45 minutos, tá? Ela está lá na casa dela, em Pequim. A gente teve alguns problemas com o som dela, então a gente vai tentar resolver isso ao longo do nosso telecast, vamos dizer assim. Professor Chen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, and and we can hear you now, so that is very good. We have resolved our technical problem. Welcome to our meeting.
Could you hear my voice?
Yes, I can very clearly. Thank you. Welcome to our
Great, finally.
Welcome to our meeting. I was just introducing your talk, and I had to talk about our technical problems that have been thankfully solved. Our meeting has 500 people who have enrolled in it. They are graduate students from all over Brazil who are studying China or China-Brazil relations, and people who are interested in contemporary China. So we welcome you warmly to our meeting. Next time we hope we can do it personally, be together physically. As you know, I am the director of the Center Cass Unicamp, my university for study of China. And you are now our fourth guest speaker since our opening. And this is the beginning of it's the continuation of a relationship that started in 2009. So we had last year, the Center Cass Unicamp was installed. And we have been hit by the COVID crisis, but you have now come to our meeting, which is wonderful, and to be able to talk to young graduate students. So I'll go back to Portuguese for a minute to introduce you, and then we'll come back to you to say some words, okay? A professora Chengxin CHEN, ela é vice-diretora do Departamento de Política Chinesa Contemporânea no Instituto de Ciência Política da Academia de Ciências Sociais. Para quem não conhece, a Academia de Ciências Sociais tem uns 5.000 pesquisadores, professores, etc., na China inteira. A sede está em Pequim, então esse Instituto de Ciência Política fica em Pequim. Ele é essencialmente uma instituição de pesquisa. Tem um papel muito interessante, que ele produz dados fora dos canais oficiais que estão usados. A gente fala sobre isso em outro contexto. E ela trabalha sobre governança social e cultura. Ela tem muitas publicações, mais artigos do que livros, e participou em mais que 30 projetos de pesquisa e também trabalhou internacionalmente. Então, eu vou passar a palavra para ela para dizer algumas palavras e depois a gente vai assistir o vídeo que ela preparou e reduziu, ela estava tendo dificuldades em mandar e conseguiu reformatar nos últimos 24 horas para a gente poder assistir juntos. So, Chen, would you like to say some words to our public, and then we can watch your video? Hello?
Great. It's nice to see my friends and also see you that sitting in front of the screen, and John have the power to join this culture exchanges. Though we have some technical problems, but there is a Chinese old saying that there is no easy way to the Great Wall. So I think finally we can build a great wall of exchange, and also I guess today's lecture exchange will be successful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is, of course, our second time doing this, so I think each time we will get better, you know. So there we go. Ok, gente, eu vou pedir para a produção colocar o vídeo para rodar. So I just asked for now we get the video, so we will hear the video. Audio.
All right.
Thank you. I'm going to.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Great to be here. This is Chengxin CHEN from the Institute of Political Science, Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Campinas State University China Study Center to set up such a wonderful platform to promote Sino-Brazilian communication and cooperation. I'd like to thank Professor Tom Dwyer and his team to invite my colleague and I to join such an interesting conference and share China's stories in our view. I'd also like to thank Mariana and you, who is sitting in front of the screen, resolutely breaking through prejudice and engaging in culture exchanges in spite of the tough pandemic. Well, today, my lecture will start with almost 4 parts. And after the introduction, let's begin from the national war in the epidemic. After that, I will choose Fengqiao town in Zhejiang province as a case study. And from the case, let's see the secrets of governance mechanisms in grassroots level in China. And the last part, let's discuss about the thoughts on governance and culture. On the start of my lecture, I would like to ask you 2 questions. 1, what is your impression of China? It's like this. This one is called 八卦. It's kind of the symbol of Chinese view of universe. And the second one is we called 易经. It's a kind of Chinese view both about universe and life. Or this one, the lovely panda, the interesting and lovely creature. 2, what is your impression of grassroots governance in China? It's like this, quite peaceful, quite traditional, or like this. It have the passion, have the vivid thing, also with a traditional outlook. Or like the last picture, it's our rural city. Some foreigners like to call it rural city. Actually, it's kind of the rural area. It's the villages. In my point of view, I would like to choose the Great Wall. The Great Wall, do you know what's the Great Wall? Have you seen the Great Wall in China? It is one of the 8 greatest world wonders. More than that, it symbolizes the determination and wisdom of the Chinese people to persevere and defeat a powerful enemy. I agree. It is a symbol of unity. Yes. It symbolizes the way how to approach grassroots social governance in China during the global epidemic. Well, let's see. About the national war in the epidemic. In China, especially the grassroots level, all subjects cooperate to fight the epidemic. You know, in order to contain the spread of the COVID-19, from 10 a.m. on January the 23rd this year, I can remember it very clearly, Wuhan, the first place where the virus was found in China, time stopped still. It suspended the operation of the city buses and subways and closed its airports and train stations. Citizens were asked to stay at home. Since then, other cities in Hubei province had taken similar measures. If you think this situation was only formed by Chinese government, maybe that's easy for us to think about. Our society, backed by the Chinese culture, which is in-depth merely in all the Chinese hearts. The lockdown of Wuhan city is equivalent to isolating an important urban transportation hub as large as 6 Sao Paulo. It's not very easy. After that, many other districts took similar lockdown measures, which were radiated to the streets of various villages and towns, including Fengqiao. Fengqiao is a commercial and a trade town in northeastern Zhouji, adjacent to Zhejiang province. It's the area of 165 square kilometers, like almost equals to 1/35 Brasilia or 1/9 Sao Paulo. Its population here is 96,000, including the local residents, 76,000, and migrants, about 20,000. And there are 28 villages and 2 communities here. It has formed an industrial pattern supported by clothing industry and led by textile fabric and mechanical hardware. Well, it's Fengqiao. For defeating the coronavirus epidemic, the government here calls for Fengqiao social organizations and ordinary citizens to play a unique role in building a new and multi-dimensional anti-COVID-19, we call it Great Wall. With the coronavirus issued by the central authorities, like we mentioned, the social organization here have the Social Organization Service Center in town. It launched a call for the first time to mobilize the social organizations and volunteers in the whole town to participate in this national war. Mobilize and unite the masses and actively participate in the prevention and control of the phenomena in the new coronavirus infection. 12 social organizations, including Hongfen Volunteer Police, Hongfen Rescue, Volunteer Association, Department, and Fengqiao Aunt is also the name of a social organization, responded immediately and formed a volunteer team of more than 100 members. This video is about the social organizations that help establish the anti-COVID-19 Great Wall with the government, enterprises, schools, and thousands of volunteers. And at least there were 9 social organizations shown in the video. Let's stop here. And actually, I will explain what they did. One thing is set up prevention network. All social organizations immediately put into the work of visiting and arranging platoons and carrying out duties at Dwyer net. You can see there were two lines. On the left, the three volunteers, that volunteers team. And on the right, the police team. So they took hand and cooperate together to set up this network. They also do the carry out duties, carry out 24 hours preservation. It's quite very hard. The industry association did a good job in investing and reporting key personnel of enterprises in the industry. You know, some people there are quite stubborn, refused to wear the mask, so they will do this. First investigate the data and find the persons, and then do the preservation. And they also raised and donated anti-epidemic materials through multiple channels, like ask the workers to donate and ask the corporate partners to donate. And many partners are abroad. They also helped to the donation. Fengqiao Aunts is a name of the social organization. Its members are containing the people who are already retired and they have enough time to do this. They sing in dialect via Fengqiao mobile trumpet, you can see in the picture, and persuade in the villagers not to gather or visit a house like that. 出門要最出嚟啊，一定要弄好啊，並對你維繫啊，點都會要過好啊， like this. So they delivered the total number of 19,000 leaflets and 37 banquets were advised to stop. More than 600 people returned to their hometowns successfully. As will be mentioned, we have years 20,000 migrants. So most of them returned. During the Spring Festival, almost most of them returned home. They also provide considerate service. You know, the social organizations in Fengqiao established a group together with the community doctors and the community workers, and also the village doctors. And they carry out temperature checks 3 times a day for the isolated persons. As isolated persons contains the older people whose kids are outside in other city, or the isolated kid whose parents are outside. And they implement the necessity procurement and garbage cleaning for the isolated objects 141. What's more, these social organizations also do provide considerate service. Psychological Care Association and other social organizations have opened a hotline service for free psychological counseling. Through online consultation or remote assistance, they actively provide crisis intervention, psychological counseling, and other professional services for patients and their families in need. In a week, more than 30 hotlines were received from villagers. After psychological counseling, they all improved significantly and show their thanks. People staying in their communities also discuss in their WeChat neighborhood groups and tried their best to help each other with food, medicine, even encouraging songs and messages. Schools, one after another, bought for teachers the daily necessities like packages of food. Actually, these schools are also asking the teachers to help the students, especially the students' families, with the daily necessities and psychological needs. So these are what the social organizations in Fengqiao did. They have quite different kinds, different sorts, and they also join this national war and from their part. The success made people feeling from fear to optimism. As the song written by a Belgian musician, Shel Malone and Robert Murray, you might think you are alone, but they would stand united, strong, and brave with you. So maybe we'll have the question, why can't the Fengqiao people be united to defeat virus? So we called it the Fengqiao experience, but actually it's sort of governance mechanism. It has different mechanisms in different spheres. And totally, these mechanisms worked together as a network. Mechanisms of social information sharing, mechanism of social governance, and also mechanisms of harmony-based guarantee. About mechanisms of social information sharing, there are at least 4 kinds or 4 parts. One is mechanism of transparent government affairs and police affairs. This is from the government sphere. Government affairs include decision-making of major events and major projects of Fengqiao town and all villages, bids and tenders and their implementation, land management and planning, execution, and punishment related to family planning. And these are quite complicated, especially during the epidemic. Financial affairs include financial budgets and final accounts and all financial receipts and expenditures of Fengqiao town and all villages, especially entertainment costs for official business, travel expenses, and charges for loss of working time, and so on. Also, there were police affairs. Police affairs disclosure refers to disclose the acceptance time, filling time, responsible policeman, investigation progress, time limit, verdicts and the basis for verdicts of criminal and public security cases. So these mechanisms make people feel that the government can be a good partner, can be a good leader, can be a good service officer for the villagers. The second mechanism is the mechanism of democratic decision-making and communication. Before making decisions on major events at town level, democratic hearings should be convened to listen to opinions and suggestions from the public. After making such decisions, explanations should be made on opinions that aren't adopted. How about the frequency? Generally, democratic symbolisms should be convened twice a year at any time. And how about the themes? The themes of democratic symbolisms should be decided by town party affairs joint conferences through collective research, and should be disclosed publicly and disseminated 1 week in advance so as to raise public participation. The people there are free to give speeches and address site inquiries. Recorders should be present in the site to make notes, and after the conference, sort out, analyze, classify, and deal with opinions and suggestions from the masses. In case of events that can be settled immediately or don't have conditions for settlement, explanations should be given, and conditions should be created to settle such events. Things which ought to be well disposed should be processed according to following procedures: site commitments, handling and settlement within a limited time, feedbacks with 1 month, and quarterly supervision. The Comprehensive Treatment Joint Conference, consisting of representatives selected from various political departments, legislative departments, economic departments, social departments, enterprises, and also the civil society. And it will discuss relatively significant comprehensive treatment problems 4 times a year. The third mechanism is called the mechanism of open social security administration and operating. So it's kind of the mechanism that copied from the government, from the central government. Justification system refers to invite members of town government, party members there, and villager representatives to convene on-the-spot meetings and announce the findings and answer questions in case of accusations that have been proved to be false or wrong by facts. Mr. Yang Studio is a quite great example. It's under the jurisdiction of the local police stations. Difficult and complicated public security cases involving injuries should be settled through the combination of administrative mediation, judicial conciliation, and civil mediation. Mr. Yang used to be a police officer, and after his retirement, he established this studio called Mr. Yang Studio, because he is full of the experience of how to deal with the difficult and complicated public security cases. So he now is in charge of this studio and help the villagers and the residents, other residents, also the migrants, to deal with such kind of cases. The system linking traffic policies with towns, villages, schools, and enterprises, guidance will be provided by prosecution organs to general public and civil disputes mediation system courts. These are also parts of the mechanism of open social security administration. So you can see what's interesting is that even in the government sphere, in each mechanism, there are also social organizations parts. There are also the seats of a civil society. The fourth mechanism is called all-round supervision mechanism. First question, responsibility system. This system refers to that the one of comprehensive treatment center, who is the hub-type social organization, takes the application put forward involved for mediation, must be responsible for taking notes and informing person in charge of such mediation without any prevarication or refusal. Second, the People's Congress, Political Consultative Conference of Fenqiao Town, and Discipline Inspection Commission of Fenqiao Town. They should display their functions of democratic supervision. Public security organs should regularly hold symposiums and invite 20 supervisors from all walks of life to supervise police conducts and disciplines. Deliberations should be conducted twice a year. Implement responsibility systems, evaluation, rewards, and punishment strictly. Organize and develop appraisal activities for outstanding grade management villages and outstanding license. Fenqiao Town has allocated funds for rewards. Why? In order to extend the timelines of the grassroots innovation. Maybe besides these democratic mechanisms, there will also new mechanisms. Great management of comprehensive treatment at village level could make improvement because it's have to advocate from the government side. Now let's turn to the mechanisms of social self-governance. It's in the civil society sphere. The first one is village council election. Fenqiao gives full space to the self-solution of social problems at grassroots level through social mechanism and social governance. And what is the first is the director, vice director, and members of the village councils of Fenqiao Town are elected by villagers directly. Villagers' Representatives Conference serves as the organ of power of all villagers, with its representatives selected by constituents. All major affairs of villagers, including social security, be resolved by villagers' representative conference according to the principle of minority rule. Village Council serves as the executing agency of Villagers' Representative Conference. Before making decisions on important events, democratic hearings and democratic symbolisms should be convened to negotiate with villagers about the settlement of villager affairs, or we can see the public affairs in villages. And the second is the management of village-level affairs. How? It should implement a system of 3 steps. The first step, seek for opinions. Important village-level affairs should be planned by village party committees and village councils and then distributed to villagers for their opinions. The second step aims at deliberation and discussion. In this step, opinions and suggestions from villagers are collected and analyzed by village party committees and village councils. After that, the modified plan should be submitted to party members' conferences and the villagers' representative symposiums there for deliberation and discussion and consensus. And come to the third step. It refers to decision making. In this step, the plan deliberated and perfected by the 2 conferences will be submitted to the joint conference of grassroots party members and villagers' representatives for solution and implementation. All administrative villagers prepare and issue brochure of democratic governance of villages, to which the public can refer to supervise village affairs. And the party members there and officers of all villagers, that means the village workers, are assessed, and 5 pieces of contents, including assessment criteria, contents, assessors, assessment process, and results should be disclosed. In order to implement democratic management of financial affairs, financial accounts of all villagers must be disclosed once a month. Villagers' representative conference of all villagers should elect about 3 to 5 persons to form financial supervision team. And all of the 28 villagers have established supervisory committee of village affairs. So as to what? So as to supervise the decision makings and implementation of village affairs and comprehensively. Discipline inspection committees are established. Village affairs bulletins are issued. Village websites are opened and renewed. Village worker forum are set up. The utilization of rights by village workers is standardized. By doing this, villagers' democratic management ability is improved. And as to the prevention of contradicts, council members should be on duty in turn, and the secretaries should be in office on a regular basis, so as to ensure that the populace can reflect or report problems at any time. And they also established a system of regular meetings for village party committees and village councils, so as to discuss and settle common people's appeal. In case of daily contradictions and disputes between common people, standardizing village regulations and non-governmental agreements and strengthening villagers' identification are also effective ways to reduce contradictions. In addition to meditations relying on grassroots organizations and self-mediations of residents. In formulating village regulations and non-governmental agreements, it is the general practice to take the following contents as important contents. These are the standardization of relations between villagers and village councils, the advocacy of awareness of public welfare, the strengthening of supervision on collective assets, civil administration and welfare, and projects of villages, and the promotion of harmony between neighbors. Detailed provisions have been formulated for disputes concerning individual interests of villagers, and this had become the distinguishing feature of village self-governance in Fengqiao. One of these villages has also invited scientific researchers of universities and colleges to modify village regulations and non-governmental agreements comprehensively and add new regulations. Happy to participate. All villagers of Fengqiao town has launched the creation activity of villages featured with unique cultures and has developed the 5 Ones project. For example, the cultural facilities include 1 library, 1 basketball court, 1 publicity window, 1 blackboard newspaper, and 1 featured activity center, so as to advocate a healthy and active lifestyle. All villagers have also sorted historical and cultural resources, renovated former residence, and memorial halls of historical and cultural celebrities and human heritages, and established a museum of history and culture and educational base of patriotism. So these are 3 mechanisms from the civil society sphere. Above all, the organizational structure and operating mechanisms of social governance, comprehensive treatment created by Fengqiao is well organized and well connected with clear division of work and division of labor and responsibilities as an administrative structure, quite similar. And it is open and transparent as a governance structure which can realize down-top participation and top-down responses. On this platform, you can see explicit contradictions are corrected by contradiction grading and classifying solution mechanism, and implicit contradictions are corrected by contradiction warning mechanism and information sharing mechanism. 4 spaces are given to the self-solution of social problems at grassroots level by social mechanisms of self-governance and factors invoking
Contradictions are resolved by mechanism of harmony-based guarantee. The operating mechanism and platform of each mechanism reflect either the cooperative governance of the government and the people, or the elements that give full play of the public ability of being autonomous, making Fengqiao be able to fully display the advantage of its mechanisms on a unified architecture platform. So it's kind of delicacy. What's the secrets of the governance mechanisms of success? Or in other words, why does governance mechanisms here work? In fact, the governance mechanism of Fengqiao is a representative of governance mechanisms in many regions of China. Many regions have achieved success through similar mechanisms. So why can Fengqiao's governance mechanism play a role in the epidemic? It is supported by profound cultural tradition. Fengqiao experience is human-oriented, gives respect to the existence of human being, and attaches importance to the value of a human being. It is full of humanistic care spirit. This essence determines that it is able to promote the construction of local culture strongly, and also be able to establish the mechanisms that mentioned above and work greatly. Fengqiao experience pushes forward renewal of the governance philosophy of ordinary citizens. With the development of Fengqiao experience, the idea of participating in social governance in the form of social organizations is getting more and more popular among ordinary citizens and is integrated into habits of democratic participation naturally. Such participation way reduces citizens' blindness to democratic participation continuously and also inspires citizens' enthusiasm and brilliance. Not only more than half of the population takes part in various social organizations here in Fengqiao, but also social organizations publish articles of association, regulations, schedules, and summaries for various activities.
Thank you, Professor Chen, for a very interesting talk. I will mention some parts of your talk that we teach about in Brazil in Portuguese to the listeners so as they can put in a context. and then we can go for some questions. Is that okay? Bom, gente, o que a professora Cheng demonstrou é aquilo que a gente que conhece a China entende que é uma sociedade onde o nível local tem muita autonomia. E você está vendo, ela está falando da fabricação de elos de ligação entre o local e o central. Obviamente tem muitos níveis na China. E antes o vilarejo ficava meio isolado fazendo suas coisas. Agora, com a chegada da modernidade, era necessário interconectar tudo. Tem uma grande frase na China que se usa até hoje: as montanhas são altas, o imperador está longe. Ou seja, na medida em que você não enche o governo de distrito, do vilarejo, você pode viver sua vida e não vai ter nenhuma intervenção externa. E a disciplina que você chama hoje, que é uma coisa de cima para baixo, vem de baixo para cima. A família tem que regular seus membros. O vilarejo tem que regulamentar quem está no vilarejo. Se as pessoas não conseguem regulamentar entre pares, são os velhos que têm que regulamentar para os jovens. É por aí que vai. E o governo só vai intervir quando a coisa fica muito fora do rumo. Essa é a tradição chinesa. Obviamente, a modernidade, as coisas estão muito mais interconectadas e mais rápido. So I was just telling the listeners, Professor Cheng, that our observation of China is partly historic, about how strong the villages are as places of self-governance, like Professor Fei Xiaotong shows in his work. The village regulates the local village, and then the district might regulate the village, and then if they can't regulate the family regulates itself first, and this goes up and up. But in a modern society, we have much more interconnection, and things happen fast. The regulatory basis that served in tradition is no longer fully serving today, so you had to introduce new mechanisms appropriate to a modern and mass society. So I have one of the questions that I've been fascinated by reading about is that social organizations, which are these organizations you are dealing with, have expanded in number hugely in China, especially after the end of the Dunway system. So maybe the Dunway system had some similar function. In Brazil, when we look at where people go to get the social, to build the social, it's quite often to the churches, and they're the kind of civil organizations separate from the state. So I was wanting you to comment on that. What I was intrigued by was the nature, the way I thought you were presenting this Feng Chao as an idea of a social experiment. You know, they'd got the people together and they were doing it. But at the very end, you said, no, Feng Chao is being reproduced in many parts of China. So is this one of many mechanisms that is being trying out, or is it a mechanism that is gradually being implanted over China, and in each part of the country will have its own characteristics? How is this mechanism working? If you could explain that, I would be very happy. And the other thing is, I noticed that retired people seem to have a very important role. You showed the people with the megaphone in the street. You talked about Mr. Yang, and I thought that was a very interesting part. So they try and make retired people feel useful. And the third thing you mentioned was that a close attention paid to old people without their children close by, and to young people without their parents close by, to make sure that nobody gets left behind. So, and how does this mechanism work? Because people are isolated. I remember in Wuhan lockdown, I saw some videos and we had things on television about Wuhan. And essentially in Wuhan, people had to stay in their houses and could not go out, and their food was delivered to the door of their house, in the Wuhan lockdown. And there was one story of a family that somehow nobody paid attention to, and they all, they didn't get any food. So it shows just one family that the mechanism probably works very well. I mean, if you could explain a bit more about this. And then I would just, for our listeners, I have seen a village election in China. I mean, I was one day in a village in a remote mountain area, and there was a ballot box on a wind and rain bridge, a bridge that has a roof on, so when it snows, the snow doesn't accumulate on the bridge and make it collapse. And so they had a ballot box there, and people were coming from their houses and they would fill in their ballots and elect. So we see and the villages in China, could you just let us know, please, because this is very interesting to us. How are the elections run at a local level? How are the local authorities chosen? Are there candidates? Do they have debates like in the West? Or is it built more on a consensus basis where everybody just elects someone who is more a natural leader or some other mechanism? So I'm sorry, too many questions in one block, but thank you very much for a very interesting talk, and which gives us some flavor of the local questions. I know a little bit of that area near Zhejiang province. I once was there with Professor Li Chunling. Yeah. Okay, you can talk now. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Though I heard your voice quite a little bit broke.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I can guess a little bit what you talk about.
Did you hear anything I said? Like a question?
Not very fluently, like a broken voice, but I've heard some points that you mentioned in my lecture.
Okay, if
which impressed you?
Yeah, I'm interested. Firstly, how do local elections work? Yeah, local elections in the villages. So if you could explain that mechanism. Second question is, there seems to be all over China huge expansion of social organizations over the last 10 years. And it seems they integrate a lot of old people, and we see old people in the center of the mechanisms. So what is the importance of that? And the third question is, Feng Chao model seems to work. And you said all over China, there are many cases like this occurring. Is this an experiment of government to rethink local government mechanisms? Or are there many different types of mechanisms being experimented with at the same time?
I guess your first question is about the Feng Chao mode, the Feng Chao experience. Do it had any reproduction in China?
Yes, yeah.
If I get your question correctly?
Yes, that's it, yeah. Okay, you can answer.
As far as the reproduction of the Feng Chao model is concerned, actually, it's already expressed almost everywhere, and many people know. We call it Feng Chao experience in Chinese. Feng Chao 经验. It's quite popular in China because it started almost at the beginning of the new China setup. When the new China was established, A few years later, Fengqiao experiences appeared.
Okay.
Though the social environment changed a lot, the main methods of how to deal with disputes, how to connect it, unite the whole people together, it's not changed.
Okay.
From Fengqiao experience, or we can see from the governance mechanisms in Fengqiao, actually it's like a mirror. It mirrors the characteristics that is in Chinese culture. Government elements are always connected with civil society elements. That means we will not say it's a kind of sort of self-governance. We also cannot only say that the grassroots governance in China is a kind of government-ordered governance. It's not only have the elements of self-governance, it's also have the elements of government effect. They are mixed together. And in this cultural environment, every element is essential. They are all independent parts to make our grassroots governments perform well, or in other words, to contain even through the governance performance. That's why I said it's kind of like the traditional architecture used the specific techniques that you only can do by the clip thing, any nails without any Siemens, but you can build a Chinese traditional architecture successfully. And it's hard to move or destroy it.
Okay.
By flames or by the heavy rain. That's the magic.
Very nice analogy, yeah.
And could you repeat your second question?
The valuing of old people, retired people.
Yes.
They seem to have their own organizations. And as you said in your talk, many of them may not have their children in the village. So it gives them other people to interact with. And is this a very important aspect of the Fengqiao dynamic, bringing the older people into activity? Participation.
Yes. I guess maybe why you raise this question, because the Mr. Young student gets your impression.
And the people walking in the street with the megaphone, you know, to say to people. And so you mentioned the old people. So I'm interested in this.
In Chinese traditional culture, from the Confucius, he taught people that we should show our respect to the old people because they are the treasure of the society. A very precious personnel resources for the national development and also for building a healthy society.
Okay. And
they are experienced, sophisticated, and like Mr. Yang, though he already retired, but many people are discussed about the retirement standards. Some people said it's not fair or it's not very reasonable. But anyway, he's full of experience, but retired. So that's why just to him to set up a social organization to help them.
Okay.
And he successfully established such kind of a success that many hard cases are already dealt with by him. And he also taught 5 to 8 villagers how to deal with the disputes there. Mm-hmm. So actually, he is a founder of the social organization. He's also the teacher for the villagers to further their ability.
Okay.
Not only the Mr. Yang studio, but also other social organizations are also set up by old people. In the video I show in my lecture, some volunteers are also the retired people. Maybe you can say it's a quite an easy work that anybody can do it. Mm-hmm. But especially in the epidemic, it's not easy. Sometimes it's really hard to recognize the people who are ill, who are ill, who are not. The young people are full of passion, as you know, but sometimes they will miss a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But the old volunteers and they judge the situation by their experience and also help to each other because keep standing one day is quite a thing. It's not easy for the older people.
Okay, thank you.
When you got the same task, the young people can only just accept the task and just stand there, keep standing, and do the check things, to do the check task. But the older people, they will help each other. Like Mr. Yang stands for the morning, and Mr. Chen stands for the afternoon. And during the work switch, they will communicate about the information that they got from each other. So they did a great help to the villagers to keep open, not really very locked down, kept open, but nobody got you. It's really, really hard. 96,000, the population is 96,000. And there were also 20,000 migrants included. But finally, nobody got you.
Wow, that's
I think it's a great thing. If you can see, it's a kind of success of the civil society. You can see that. But actually, it's not really. You can see it's a kind of success of the people. Not really. Because the people there have the idea to treasure each other's knowledge, each other's wisdom, as well as each other's mistakes. That's why they can got such kind of success. And your third question, I'm not sure whether I already answered your questions. Let's turn to the third question, the mechanisms of local elections. Yeah. Have you seen or joined any local elections in China or in Brazil?
In Brazil, they're very formal and run by the electoral justice system. But in China, I saw an election one time in the mountains in Guizhou province, and there was a ballot box, and people would come from their houses and fill in paper and put in the box. So I was very intrigued by this because I have read about local elections in China, and I just wanted to ask you, how were people elected? Because the candidates there were not members of the party. They were, I don't know, how do you choose candidates? It must be some kind of consensus that builds up. How does it work, the people choosing their candidates in local elections?
Nowadays in China, all the villages have such kinds of democratic elections.
Yeah, all of the villages.
And
yeah,
once you turn to the election, of course, you can see each election will be guided by the elites there. That means the any kinds of leaders, economic elites or elites of civil society.
Okay.
I've already joined some research on the midterm election in Hase. Actually, it's quite similar to the village election in China.
Mm-hmm.
The people who want to be elected will give you the leaflets and also will give a public presentation. But it's not the most important point. If you want to be elected, the key thing you have to do is to get what villagers' thoughts, what villagers' needs,
Bom, gente, como vocês estão vendo, tivemos um fluxo lá na internet, coisa que a gente não teve ontem. Então, a professora Chen, talvez eu não tenha o mesmo nível de conexão que a professora Lin, mas veremos. Mas é muito interessante o que ela está contando. E vocês estão vendo, ela é totalmente moderna, mas essa referência ao passado, Confúcio, é algo que se acha em todos os cientistas sociais. Pode dizer que é a ideologia dominante, mesmo na China, é engraçado, depois de 2.500 anos, é Confúcio, ligado ao budismo e taoísmo, e, obviamente, a modernidade é representado através do liberalismo de um lado e o marxismo do outro. Mas a gente nunca refere à Bíblia, por exemplo, ou a questões da Grécia Antiga para legitimar muitas das coisas que para nós são as coisas corriqueiras na vida. O fórum, o debate, isso é uma coisa que emergiu na Grécia. É só na Grécia, não teve isto em outra parte do mundo, em outra civilização. A abertura, por exemplo, para outras culturas foi uma coisa que, de novo, na Grécia, que está ligado ao Mediterrâneo, com todos aqueles países, etc. Então, a China sempre evoluiu por dentro, essa coisa da sabedoria do povo, e tem que reunir tudo para avançar. É uma ideia bem sedimentada. Eu tenho umas perguntas aqui, que eu vou colocar, da Thalita e da Vivian Vela, Thalita Pinotti. Deixa eu ver quais outros. Então, isto realmente é o segundo dia que a gente tenta isto, e chegamos num tipo de problema técnico. Vamos ver se vamos conseguir resolver, que ela está tentando voltar, está escrito. E até ontem todos os nossos problemas eram problemas domésticos. O internacional, que é teoricamente muito mais difícil, funcionou, mas a gente fez aquela coisa de pedir justamente as pessoas gravarem e mandarem suas exposições, por desconfiar desse tipo de problema que a gente está tendo hoje. Eu vou eventualmente mandar as perguntas feitas. Se ela não consegue voltar, eu vou ler as perguntas para vocês, e depois eu vou mandar por escrito para ela, e a gente vê se ela consegue responder por escrito. Então, a questão, ou seja, das eleições locais, ela foi bem específica. As eleições locais são organizadas pelas elites locais. Quais são as elites locais? Obviamente, a gente teria que ter uma sociologia empírica disso na China, tentando entender os processos. São pessoas obviamente, educação é um grande marcador na China, nível de educação. Então, essa seria uma das bases, alguém que voltou para o vilarejo depois de fazer carreira fora, eventualmente alguém que está bem sucedido no vilarejo, etc., viram essas pessoas mesmo que acabam sendo escolhidos. Mas ela, basicamente, você tem que falar, para ser eleito, tem que falar com o pessoal do vilarejo e entender os pensamentos deles, as suas necessidades. Parece muito com o que seria nosso mecanismo e o ideal dos partidos, né? Mas tem que ter uma ideologia que representa aquilo que o povo pensa, deseja, etc. Eu achei a exposição muito clara. Eu já vi várias exposições sobre governo local. Agora, isto é absolutamente exemplar, porque você viu que é um mecanismo de governo que desenvolveu-se em Fengchao. E para vocês que conhecem China, o que eu vou falar agora é nada novo, né? Mas porque vocês não conhecem, talvez seja uma surpresa. China é feito de um monte de experiências práticas. Experimenta o tempo inteiro para ver o que funciona e o que não funciona. E quando funciona, tenta-se replicar o modelo, de baixo para cima. Não é igual ao nosso. Vamos ter uma grande política nacional que vai descer para todas as partes. Isto existe. Os planos, por exemplo, estão pautados nisso. Mas você lembra da resposta sobre os planos ontem? Plano é governo nacional, mas toda província, todo distrito tem que reinterpretar os planos para suas necessidades. Então, a gente está vendo aqui um movimento mais de baixo para cima, com os velhos da cidade, vários tipos de organizações sociais. Esses pode ser o coral, pode ser jogadores de xadrez, de backgammon, se tem uma associação, sabe? Pode ser aqueles que gostam de canto de pássaro. Tem milhares de associações na China, dos mais diversos tipos. Então, eles se reúnem para justamente cuidar do processo político. Eu não sei se a Mariana ou o Nick gostariam de completar algumas coisas sobre a exposição. Mariana, você gostaria de complementar o Nick um pouquinho, só para manter a bola rolando? Se ela não consegue voltar em 10 ou 15 minutos, a gente encerra, eu acho, né? A não ser que... Mas tem duas perguntas aqui que eu não sei responder, então que a gente faria para ela depois por escrito, se ela não voltar. Vocês gostariam eu gostaria que vocês comentassem um pouco a exposição. O Nick tem uma grande experiência com poder local na China. Uma coisa que ele está estudando, modestamente ele vai dizer que ele não entende nada, que é assim que é uma resposta chinesa. E Mariana foi consultar o livro do Fei Xiaotong agora.
Então, eu estou falando com a professora Chan para tentar trazer ela de volta, então eu só vou sair aqui da sala porque eu estou falando com ela. Eu já volto.
Tá legal, tá? Tá bom, obrigado. E Nick?
Perfeito. Então, eu achei muito boa a exposição também. Tem vários assuntos. Eu, de fato, não sabia muito sobre esse modelo de Fengchao, mas eu acho...
Não tinha nem ouvido falar.
Olha só. Eu tinha já ouvido falar, mas não dessa forma. É um assunto que não conheço muito bem, não conheço muitos detalhes, mas achei bem interessante, porque muitas vezes, quando a gente fala sobre China, a gente tem essa impressão de que um país autoritário, ele não é nada democrático, são muitas vezes hipóteses que são trazidas no discurso diário, na mídia, né? Mas se a gente for olhar as fontes, as pesquisas de campo, e o sistema mais do fundo, né, a gente vê realmente que tem uma democracia bem viva ao fundo dessa organização administrativa, né. Eu lembro que acho que faz 2 anos que a gente teve um palestrante em um evento que você organizou, que falou um pouco sobre as diferenças da China no nível federal, no nível central, é muito centralizado, né? As diretrizes são muito claras, muito centradas no comitê central, mas é bom repetir essa frase que explica muito. O imperador, as montanhas são altas, o imperador fica longe. Essas interpretações das normas de governança no nível local são muito interessantes, muito diversas. Tem em muitas partes da China, elas são consideradas são muito flexíveis, né? Até certo ponto, até certo momento. E aqui a experiência de Fangtiao talvez mostre isso de uma forma bem instigante, né? Achei também muito interessante uma questão que os demógrafos também têm muito interesse em discutir, que eu às vezes sigo um pouco, que é o envelhecimento do país, né? A China é um país com a política do filho único, tem um grande problema de envelhecimento, mais do que o Japão e a Alemanha, países no Ocidente que também ficam velhos, mas tem todo esse desafio de integrar os velhos. Eu acho que essa parte de incluir os velhos na organização social, dar um sentido de vida a eles, é uma pergunta-chave para a sociedade chinesa entender, ver soluções e realmente experimentar do jeito que foi feito com as zonas econômicas especiais, que foi os experimentos do Deng Xiaoping nos anos 80. É assim que se faz também com políticas sociais agora, né? No fundo, no nível mais local, se experimenta como se pode resolver esses problemas de envolver os velhos na organização da sociedade. Sobre o assunto dos mecanismos de eleições locais, eu não sei muito, mas achei interessante também. Talvez você poderia falar mais um pouco sobre esse processo que você presenciou?
Posso, é aquela coisa, a gente sempre ouve que todos os vilarejos na China têm eleições. We are talking about Nicholas here, and we are talking about your wonderful talk and just explaining to the public some mechanisms of local power and things, yeah? Nice to have you back. Can you hear me?
Sorry for the techniques, sorry.
We don't dominate technique, we're social scientists. I talked a little bit about the local elections a bit more, and Nicholas talked about the autonomy at the local level in China, and he works on questions linked to Chongqing, linked to the ecological dream in Chongqing, so his interest in local power. One of the members of the audience is from Brasilia. Her name is Vivian Vella. She gave a talk last year at CAS, and she studies the education system. And so she was asking here, how was it with the schools and how was this monitored and worked on in, say, your Fengchao case? What happened to the schools there? And how do you have information about this? You mentioned before teachers, and you mentioned them getting food and things from the public or from the committees. So she would like to hear more
Yes.
about this.
Yes.
Okay, you can.
During the academic,
Yeah.
So, for example, we had a couple of examples of online learning tools. I guess it goes a little in this direction that Professor Veller is interested in knowing a little more about the experience and Fengqiao.
yes, during the academic, the schools and universities do the necessity for the teachers. But what's more, they also ask the teachers to help the students, not only the study, but also the life. Because during the National War, many parents had no time to take care of their kids. So teachers will do in the charge. Many students will have the classes on internet. That means the net class. Because if you want to get the access to Wi-Fi, you have to pay for it. But during the epidemic, many social organizations do the donation, and also the governments set up such kind of fund just to support students for the net classes. That's why all the students in this village, in all the villages, like 28 villages in total, gets the net classes access. I think it's a good job.
Good.
And
Another.
after that, the teachers also do the psychological guide for the students. Because we have sort of teacher who are in charge of the civil education. So these teachers, during the academic, will do such kind of psychological thing.
Oh.
And this service did help some students whose parents had no time to go back home. And even some of their parents who are doctors or nurses, everybody, their daily work is with the virus. This will make the students get panic. And these teachers really did help. How they did? One thing is have special net classes. These classes in these classes teach students how to protect themselves and how to show their energy to their parents, how to show their passion on their study, and how to show their help the districts, the people in other districts. It's quite touching. And what's more, the students in higher grades are encouraged to help the students in lower grades. And how do they help? Especially on the study. You know, when you get some trouble in working out mathematics, you can try to have a try to speak the whole process, how to deal with this mathematics. So actually, the students in higher grades also benefit from these activities.
Okay, very nice.
And the teachers are not only help the students, but also do the communication with the parents. Because some parents are like eager to work. They only know how to work well, but they don't know how to communicate with the students. And this, maybe, it won't get any problem in daily situations, but it will get some side effects, especially in the epidemic period.
Very nice reply.
So the psychological counseling service is not just for the students, but also for parents.
And it builds community as well. It builds the community.
Yes, they have the WeChat community to carry out these activities.
Okay.
Very
And
interesting.
you know,
Thank you for
because our
detailed reply.
governance mechanism is mixed with the official sphere as well as the civil society sphere. So they also have a WeChat on a special topic, a specific topic. And in this WeChat community, both government officers and the people's in social organizations are there to discuss, communicate, even quarrel sometimes.
To quarrel, yeah.
To fix the problems, yes.
Okay. We have some other questions about the one from Talita Pinocchi, more a wider question about how internet helps or is used in government.
Could you type the questions on the private chat?
Está em português, gente.
Because I can't see any question here.
Yeah, está em português a pergunta.
I translated it here, Tom.
Okay. She's going to write the question.
And when you are typing, I can share more about the Fengqiao mechanism. Because each governance mechanisms will have its shortcomings. And Fengqiao is not an exception. While making achievements, Fengqiao experiences also shows its shortcomings in guaranteeing public security and maintaining social order. And these shortcomings are obvious, for all they didn't weaken the actual effects of social governance created by Fengqiao experience and didn't stop from the public. These shortcomings are relevant to other regions, so that's why I want to do this addition. First of all, Fengqiao mechanism is indeed effective in resolving neighborhood conflicts and most of the civil disputes and livelihood disputes, even a small number of criminal disputes. It has also made remarkable achievements in resolving disputes over development arising in new situations. But it can be hard to resolve the problem of corruption. So the main contents of this Fengqiao governance mechanism include relying on ordinary citizens and mediating disputes and prevent crimes by delivering summons so as to realize social stability. No change happens to the two core ideas contained in it. That is, paying attention to contradictions among the people and eliminating contradictions at the grassroots level. When it comes to corruption, in addition to subject reasons, a power mechanism and the political system are also involved. The ultimate solution to such a problem will not count by depending only on Fengqiao mechanism. When contradictions upgrade from grassroots level to upper levels, sometimes it's possible. So the primary problem will be how to treat such a contradiction. And theoretically, upper leaders should be more of a leader, controlling person than grassroots leaders, and should have a greater ability to resolve contradictions. Handling the contradictions among the people correctly is the common responsibility for the upper leaders. Secondly, incentive mechanisms for citizens' participation in governance of public affairs are not enough, including incentive mechanisms. This is a popular problem I had found during my survey. On one hand, people of Fengqiao mainly live on farming or being engaged in industry, projects, or trades, as I mentioned before. Thus, making a living needs to invest time continuously. So on the other hand, since the implementation of village self-governance, village workers have not been included in national administrative system, and their wages or their incomes are serviced from village finance according to its population size. That means this part, the village finance part, are partly supported by the government and partly by the village itself, by the village council itself. The wage of a main village committee worker in over 3,000 population village is 800 yuan per month. So it's quite low, in China. That's in a village with its population between 2,000 to 3,000 is 700 yuan per month. And that in a village with its population less than 2,000 is 600 yuan per month. So you can see the difference. When governing public affairs, village workers has a higher social status and a high power to decide and dispose village affairs, and has been incented by more social resources from the perspective of mentality. And they have some compensations as far as material incentive concerned. The above mentioned which level is far from enough for they to have to make a living under the current price level. So, but in general, the incentives and compensations are limited. In the short term, the position of village workers, which does not have enough economic incentives, will still be attractive for people of Fengqiao town, who attach great importance to the accumulation of social capital. But looking ahead, it is looking above. It is required to give deeper considerations, more considerations to the incentive functions of non-economic factors for the position of village workers. And certainly I want to mention that is disposals for people seeking extra interest by meditation mechanisms and addicted to petitions are not enough. This is also one of the dilemmas facing Fengqiao. Fengqiao experience is a mechanism placing emphasis on public security and the cooperation. But all means used by Fengqiao mechanism to mediate disputes or educate people have played a good role in resolving contradictions. But setting this experience as an example stimulates and intensifies the motives of some people to resolve problems by petitions to some extent. Because it's a kind of a harmony-based mechanism. So somebody think, yes, if I could be the destroyer of the harmony, maybe I can get some what I want. So that's a kind of dilemma. So these 3 points that I mentioned could be considered as the shortcomings of the global mechanisms in Fengqiao. But also we can see that it has its own ways to improve it. Yeah, that's what I want to add.
Okay, thank you very much for a very interesting talk and for your answer to the questions. We had a little bit of technical problems, but what has happened is that our audience now knows a lot more than we knew before. I think the Fengqiao mechanism was very enlightening for everybody. It's a part of modern China, which, as you were saying, has elements of old China in it. You quoted Confucius, you mentioned the importance of older people, and then it's also very technological also. During the quarantine and things, the children using online classes, using WeChat communities and things. So a very nice kaleidoscope, but a political one of contemporary China. So we would like to thank you very much for your talk. Hopefully next time we can bring you here to Brazil and you can spend some time in our center and we can get to know each other personally. So thank you very much. And on behalf of all the team, thank you very much as well.
Thank you, Tom, and your team. Thank you very much. I'm pretty sorry for the technical problems, which I want to show you more. So that's why I try to speak very slowly, but I know it's not very good show.
But
today.
I think it worked. We will do a debriefing after, but I'm pretty sure everybody learned a lot. And your main talk that you sent us was very clear, so that helped. And I'm glad to see your voice. You have got your voice back. You lost your voice during the week, yeah? So this is good, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Okay.